Guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but Deadlock might be one of the greatest games ever made. Otherwise, I wouldn't have 480 hours in it. Woo, that's a lot. Now look, just in case you have no idea what this is or why it might have been popping up on Steam or whatever, Deadlock is Valve's latest game. Yes, the Valve, the company that makes Half-Life and, Steam, all of that. The company that refuses to release games, except Half-Life 3, we still believe, okay? They released a new game, which is a cross between a third-person shooter, highly movement-based third-person shooter, and a MOBA. Very unsurprising considering that the head of this is IceFrog, which is the creator of Defense of the Ancients and Dota 2 when Valve brought that over. On top of that, a lot of what the team behind Deadlock are a bunch of Valve people that are really passionate about third-person shooters and MOBAs, and I guess theoretically competitive games, including a fact that I think some people just didn't know about, that Valve bought Hopoo Games, which are the people behind Risk of Rain 1 and 2. Once Risk of Rain was sold off to Gearbox, Hopoo joined Valve, and there were questions as to why and what they would be doing. Well, that was answered very quickly when a lot of the Hopoo team just jumped onto the Deadlock Discord. And by the way, if you're a big fan of Risk of Rain 2, there's some DNA now in that, and in some of the characters especially. Now, if a third-person shooter MOBA sounds like something you've heard before, be that in something like Predecessor, for example, I don't know, Super Monday Night Combat, for anybody who remembers that, and you feel like it's been done before and it just doesn't work, well, Valve has figured out how to make it work. However, it comes with one very big problem that you might have seen coming. The complexities of a MOBA mixed with the moment-to-moment gameplay and high skill expression of a third-person movement shooter does lead to a game that is, indeed, for unemployed people. This is the one problem that Deadlock currently has, at least in my opinion, which is that its overall learning curve is pretty much just a cliff. Now look, to be honest, in the future, matchmaking working on the skill-based for people who are new, getting to grips with what the game does is not the most difficult thing in the world, especially if you are quite knowledgeable about either first-person shooters or third-person shooters or MOBAs. And at the heart of it, this is a MOBA. That means that you go to one of 3 different lanes and you fight your opponents over creeps and lane control. There is a jungle that divides the lanes with certain objectives that you can fight over as well, and the farm of the jungle, you take down towers until you reach the enemy base, and when you take it all down, you win. But it is a game with a tremendous amount of depth in its moment-to-moment gameplay that you really have to lock in for a competitive game to a degree that is probably higher than most other competitive games. On top of that, it requires the tremendous amount of knowledge and keeping up with the game that you would expect from something like a MOBA. You should know what all of the characters do, what their strengths are, how to counter them, and how to modify your build against them, and that's a very big part of skill expression through knowledge. Now, don't let any of that scare you away, because if you have enjoyed games that contain some of these elements before, Deadlock is something really, really special. Now, the reason we're talking about it again is because on its anniversary of its public invitations, because no, you can't just download this game, you need to be invited into its closed alpha, technically still, maybe closed beta. It's still not an open beta, it's still not out, they're not promoting it, there's no monetization systems in the game, there's no loot, cosmetics, just the game, and the people who are playing it are there because they like it. There's not even a ranked mode. But even within this closed state, on the 1-year anniversary of opening it up to invitations, they have released 6 new heroes over the course of 2 weeks, along with a gigantic update, refining a ton of the different things in the game, including the overall aesthetics, the map, a ton of voice lines, a ton of icons, just a lot of polish and new content all thrown in at once. This has brought some buzz back to the game and brought a lot of players back, because a lot of people have played Deadlock before. It's nowhere near its all-time player peak that it had 1 year ago, but those people quickly, left. mostly because there was no real incentive to keep playing for a lot of them. There's no treadmill to grind or pretty objects to get. As I said before, you play it to play it. Like it's $19.99 or something. But on top of that, the game is in alpha, which means that if a MOBA is something that continuously changes and you kind of have to keep up with, imagine how much worse it gets when a game is pretty unstable and going through huge changes on almost a weekly basis. And that was a lot to keep up with a lot of broken stuff, characters that were missing voice lines, textures, all sorts of things, because the game is still in development and they're not afraid to let people play it and give feedback in sometimes a pretty rough state. A rough state that it is no longer in. So I hope that gives a good general idea of what Deadlock is and why people are talking about it. But after all of that, now I can say, and hey, I'm not saying it's currently perfect or there aren't balancing issues or some of the new heroes don't need some tuning or anything like that. But god damn it is Deadlock in a fantastic and incredibly fun state at the moment that really shows how much promise this has for the future. So the structure for this video is going to be pretty simple now that I've informed you of that. I want to talk about the reasons that Deadlock is incredibly enjoyable and why you might be interested in jumping in on it early, and then what I expect Deadlock will be in about maybe 1 or 2 years. And by the way, hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. It's great to see you. You are looking fantastic. We're talking about what is arguably at this point my favorite current game, Deadlock. I could not be more excited. Let's get into it. All right, this is the most important thing that you should know about Deadlock. If you like very skill expressive shooters that allow you to really get to know your character, your weapons, and just absolutely dominate people through raw skill, Deadlock is a game you're going to enjoy. I've used this comparison before because I think it's apt even more so as time goes on, but if anybody remembers Guns the Duel, yes, just yes, yes. This is a game that features dashing and sliding and wall jumping and air dashing and all sorts of crazy abilities regarding a gigantic map on which everything takes place, where every nook, cranny, and little area of it allows for different movement tricks that will have you absolutely destroying the competition's ankles. Along with that, it highly rewards good aim and making sure that you keep track of your enemy through all of that insanity. And if that sounds fun to you, oh boy, you should play some Deadlock. Now, maybe that sounds just a bit too much for you, and you like some parts of it, but that sounds intimidating and how difficult it might be. So let me propose this other option. If you're the type of person who enjoys theory crafting a build around items that are designed to completely change how your character plays throughout a match, and using that knowledge to decimate your opponents by basically standing still, you're gonna like Deadlock, because that's also a thing that you can do. Both sides of this equation, the shooter part and the MOBA knowledge part, are very much present here, and both are equally valid to the point that an excellent person on one side can choose a character that highly rewards that, or a person that's excellent on the knowledge side can choose a character that rewards that, and a person that has a little bit of both can choose characters that synergize with that. But this ties into the one thing that I think Deadlock excels at above every other MOBA or anything in that space that we have ever seen, including many times games that are battle royales even that feature in-game leveling. And that is the progression throughout a match of Deadlock is absolutely perfect. The difference from arriving at level 1 to your lane and fighting over creeps and lane control to how a team fight evolves at around minute 25 is night and day. And the different ways that you can choose to build out your character more in one direction or another, and just how powerful and fast and crazy things go from start to that end game is just wild. It is intoxicating to go through that progression in that shortened amount of time where you go from taking advantage of every tiny detail of your character to getting all of your items, leveling up your skills, and going crazy. This means that naturally in Deadlock, you have moments where because you're ahead, you feel unstoppable, but at the same time, smart use of different items and smart skill prioritization from your enemies can still take you down, and it is equally rewarding to be on either side of that. One of the big reasons that it works in Deadlock is because the items are designed much more in line with Dota than something like League of Legends, meaning that they affect a lot more things. And while some of those items have been tuned down because just the interactions went a little bit too crazy, they still are very, very dramatic in how they affect your character. Or to give a good example of somebody that might come from League of Legends, you have items that will increase the range of your abilities, which is a pretty big deal depending on your character and can even be core to them. The other thing is that all of the characters have 4 different skills that you might expect, your 1, 2, 3, and then your ultimate on your 4, and all of these skills can be leveled up as the game progresses. But there is a very costly final upgrade that you can apply that often transforms the ability into something much stronger or gives it an effect that really defines a character's playstyle. Choosing which ability on a character you want to max means that you are deciding how your playstyle is going to be with that character. Even though you are still that character, it can dramatically change how they are played and how you prioritize your build. When you start putting all of these things together and you start considering the fact that a lot of that progression has to do with obtaining currency, souls, which comes from farming and jungling and not necessarily from fighting, you start to see why Deadlock can be an incredibly fun game even if you don't excel at hitting headshots. Because there's a lot of different heroes that work very well by getting enough farm and then from a distance and with not that much aim, hitting a really disruptive abilities or supporting the team. And you still get to express that skill through macro of understanding the map, where you should be pushing, what team fights you should go and help, and understanding things like enemy cooldowns. This means that even though on the surface it looks incredibly intimidating, the truth is that there is a place for many different sorts of players within Deadlock, and I think that there's no better way of seeing that than through its characters. Coming all the way from what looked to be basically a plain map that was used for development testing, all the way to today, the latest update of the New York, the cursed apple of Deadlock, you can see just how much passion has been put into the aesthetics, the lore, and especially in creating fantastic characters that immediately communicate who they are and how they play. And that's the thing where Valve has always excelled at as well. It's creating those characters, those iconic silhouettes like you would see in Team Fortress 2. And in my opinion, it outdoes pretty much everybody else out there doing a character-themed game. Obligatory mention of Concord, which somehow it managed to be terrible and then, I mean, in this specific thing of just communicating personality and how characters play through how they look and how they feel and how they sound. Every character included in Deadlock at this point has a very strong personality, belongs to a type of band or a type of association, and has relationships with other characters with tons of little quips and voice lines that add a bunch of flair to them, but that also communicates very clearly who they are and what they do. Be that McGinnis with her obsession with her giant machine gun and her turrets and just technology and blowing people up, who works as a trapper and zoner. Be that newer characters like Drifter, a stalking vampire that hunts people throughout the night and does extra damage to people who venture into the jungle through extra isolation damage. Or the absolute standout of the latest crew for me, the Doorman, which is the doorman of a hotel in the Cursed Apple, and he shoots with his keyring, and also his ultimate transports people into a cursed hotel they need to escape from. He also throws luggage carts at people where he transports them on, and the most important part of it all is that he opens doors. And by doors, I mean portals. Yes, blue and orange portals, from Valve's other game, Portal. That's one of his abilities, to set up 2 portals around the map that are interconnected in just that way you would expect from Portal or from the more recent Marvel rivals with Doctor Strange, except this isn't on a very long cooldown, it just happens pretty much all the time. It is absolutely wild, and it is just perfect for him to be condescending and insulting to everybody, and also knowing everybody's backstory and deepest, darkest secrets, and then just insulting them and attacking them with it. But that's just the start. Lady Geist, with her cursed arm, throwing cursed energy at people and hurting herself in order to do damage, to the very Frankenstein-inspired Victor, who just released, that hurts himself as well, except he wants to die. He wants pain all the time. Hayes within the OSIC, an entire branch of the lore of secret investigations created by the CIA to investigate paranormal activities that are basically just SCPs and hunt them down. And then just weird stuff. Weird stuff regarding the OSIC, like Viscous. He's just a viscous mass with a cute voice, and he's annoying, and he creates giant punches and he punches himself, but he also can cube himself and put people in cubes, which purges debuffs and makes you immune to damage. And also, when he does really well, the announcers of each team will say, "Glory to the cube." By the way, in case you are familiar with some of Deadlock and you're wondering, yes, I think Billy is one of the best written characters of all time. Man, do I love him and his meta jokes and all his glory, man. Billy is so funny. And the fact that he's a goat with a baseball bat, and because his hand is busy with the baseball bat, to reload, he eats the magazine and then puts a new one in with his mouth. He's brilliant. God, I love this game. I think we often underestimate that for a game like this that demands the attention of people for very long times, long matches for long play sessions that require knowledge and investment and dedication into them, it's important for people to love playing the game. And that is not just how it feels to hold down a button and shoot the opponent, or the little sounds that play when you get a double kill. It's about every detail, from how a character looks when they're moving to how it feels to move them and jump around and wall jump into a dash, into a slide, and using each of their abilities, but also how they sound and the environment they are in and how they interact with others. That is how you create a fan base, by making sure that the people who love your game have things that they can become attached to. And Deadlock understands that perfectly, and probably not on purpose, but just because the people making the game really want to make these characters cool for themselves. I guess it's one of the benefits of Valve not really caring about stuff, because they have too much money and they apparently just let developers do whatever they want whenever they want. And if they work on a game for 4 years and nobody knew about it and it never comes out, well, who cares? And that freedom shows in just how wild of an idea Deadlock is, how much of a labor of love it is, and how exciting it is to play. The fact that all of these complex systems and the different ways of enjoying it are all there, and you can go and do that. Find someone, a character, or a group of characters that's for you, that you resonate with, and you can express yourself in a competitive game. To me, that's everything. But of course, I say all of this without having mentioned that Valve also, despite frequently looking like they don't, they love money. Oh yeah, so why exactly do I think Deadlock is poised to be excellent in the future and a big hit? Well, for all of the reasons I just said, but because the things that are missing from Deadlock, Valve knows how to do them. I think it's an incredibly positive thing that a game that is in early access, unfinished, and has no carrots on the stick, no season passes, no battle passes, no cosmetics, nothing to really show off for what you're doing, not even a rank, and still has 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 different people playing it every day. That's a seal of quality in my book, especially in the times we live in. But we all know that Valve, when it comes to monetizing their games, oh boy, do they know how to do that. Should I tell you guys about this little game called Counter-Strike? Heck, what about this little game called Team Fortress 2? The Steam Marketplace is ripe for more monetization in that style, and Valve knows it. And combined with other systems similar to the revamping that they've done regarding Dota 2, at least the parts of that people have enjoyed, I'm pretty confident that once Deadlock is in full swing and it's getting its seasonal updates, changes, and big blowouts of media and probably a competitive scene that's accompanied with a battle pass and tons of cosmetics and chests and keys on the store, people won't be able to get enough of it. It's just the last piece of the Valve magic, and I know that sounds strange because we're talking about monetization, but it is something that people like and does create communities as people talk about the coolest cosmetics or the ultimate skins or completing the new events in the game. And a lot of the time, those things are done with the Valve flair of we don't care and we just did it. Do I need to remind people that Dota 2 released a fighting game within the game as a thing for an event not too long ago? Like, these guys just go crazy sometimes. And I think it's just poetic that an idea that so many people have had over the years of what if we take a shooter and a MOBA and we just put it together? It needed Valve to come and say, well, to do that, it needs to be a 100% shooter and 100% MOBA. It can't be a weird mishmash that tries to accommodate for people of one side or the other. No, we just go full out and embrace the complexity and the learning curve and hope that we make a game that is so good that people will bear it to learn it, to play it, to enjoy it. And in my opinion, the game's not even publicly available, and they've already succeeded. Barring a catastrophe, Deadlock will be a gigantic thing. It might not be the most played game in the world every day, but you can bet that it's going to have a popular esports scene if they can figure out the spectator side of it. And Valve knows how to handle that. We know that from Counter-Strike 2 and Dota 2. It will make tons of money, and it will have thousands of people yelling slurs at each other per minute. What this latest update to Deadlock has done is prove that they know what they're doing, and they are still working with more passion, more polish, and working towards a final version of the game, or at least an acceptable version of it, for them to release. I could not be more excited for more people to experience Deadlock, to enjoy it as much as I do, because as a person who's played almost every single live service multiplayer game under the sun in the last 15 years, I can tell you that none of them come close to the potential that Deadlock has. And I hope I've expressed why I feel that way in this video. And if you enjoyed it, and I did communicate it, leave a like. It helps. The YouTube algorithm is crazier every day, so it helps greatly. And maybe, if you want more from me in the world of news, reviews, retrospectives, essays on the industry, basically everything about video games, filtered through my way of seeing it, subscribe. You get a ton of that, and it's all free. Please go out there and enjoy Deadlock, especially now that the player count is high. Just, it's so good. And with that out of the way, I'll see you again very soon.